Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's me coming at you getting another vid. I wanted to share with you this interesting article that I found on Boxing Scene. And it was an Andy Lee interview, and he was asked about his upcoming bout when he'd be making his second title defense against Billy Joe Saunders, which is this Saturday, which I favor him to win that fight. And he was asked about a potential unification bout with Gennady Golovkin, who's the unified champion, unified IBF and WBA super middleweight champion. Okay. And now Andy Lee was asked about this, and he said, "quote Well, first, it's all speculation. If I don't beat Joe Saunders, um, if I don't beat Billy Joe Saunders, it won't happen." He told Sky Sports. But I believe I'm the only one who can give him, which he's referring to Gennady Golovkin, a serious challenge out there. Now I have the size, the punch, and the boxing ring craft. I don't think I've ever seen anyone push him back or bully him like he does to his opponents. Now, and for me, you have to give him a bit of that, not tense up or tighten up under the pressure, but he puts people under. Now, you have to be an animal if you want to be an animal, and I do that. Now, honestly, I like Andy Lee. I do. All right. Um, but he's a very good, he's a good fighter, but, at the same time, he's pretty limited because he seems to fight a bit flat footed. He doesn't really keep his hands up. I mean, he sometimes he disregard his defense because he relies so much on his power to get him through fights. Now, this is the same Andy Lee here who had has suffered knockout losses to Brian Vera and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who, by the way, I mean, had an enormous weight advantage over Andy Lee in that fight. An enormous weight advantage. I mean, Jesus Christ, the size advantage was ridiculous. I mean, Chavez came in here like had to be over 190, like close to 190 pounds in that fight. That's ridiculous. All right. But, other than that, it is what it is. He suffered that brutal knockout loss to Chavez Jr. And some felt that he was in over his head. He was pretty much past it. He was done now. But he got a shot at redemption. He rejuvenated his career when he came back and knocked out John Jackson, who was at the time, a high prospect in the light middleweight division. He's a son of probably one of the best pound for pound punchers of all time, hardest punchers of all time, Julian Jackson. I mean, in that fight, it seemed that Jackson had Lee in the brink of knocking him out because Lee was hurt badly because John Jackson had him knocked down, I believe, once or maybe twice in that fight. But Lee came back. He held up against his ropes and held his ground, and he caught Jackson with a solid right and knocked him out cold. And obviously, I was shocked. And we all knew that Jackson was set up to win that fight against Lee because, again, we all believed that he was shot. He didn't have it what it takes anymore, but he completely rejuvenated his career there. And, well, what can you say? That was like a Tony Thompson moment. All right. And then after that, he got a shot at Matt Korobov for the vacant middleweight title, WBO middleweight title, which was vacated by Peter Quillen, who at the time was supposed to fight Korobov, but he ducked the fight and gave up the title. I don't know why, but obviously it had something to do with the Rock Nation situation, where Rock Nation was offering him more money that he can ever possibly have imagined, but he turned it down in loyalty of for Al Heyman. I mean, nothing wrong with loyalty, but hey, sometimes money isn't everything. But it is what it is. But he had knocked out Matt Korobov, which is pretty surprising because I think Korobov was a favorite to win that fight because he was undefeated and he was looked upon as a monster going in. But it is what it is. But he came in here and got knocked out, and end the story. Then it set up a matchup between Lee and Peter Quillen, and I thought Peter Quillen was going to win that fight because I felt that was ridiculous for him to drop his title, then get an immediate title shot after the fact he dropped his title. But a good thing he didn't win. Obviously he didn't lose either because it was a draw, nor he made weight for that fight. So I was like, good, because obviously Quillen didn't deserve to get that title shot to begin with. And it was sweet just to see that he didn't win or neither lose, but the fact that he wasn't going to win that title either if he knocked out Lee or beat him on points, whatnot. But it is what it is. But, obviously he's going to a fight against Billy Joe Saunders. I expect him to win that fight because I think Billy Joe Saunders he does have the boxing ability. He can fight in angles. I think he will give Lee some, bit of issues fighting in angles. But at the same time, I don't see Billy Joe Saunders having the power or the ability to keep the pressure off because Andy Lee can be a pretty good pressure fighter, and he is quite big for a middleweight, so he can definitely pressure Billy Joe Saunders and bully him a bit. So yeah, I expect him to win that fight, even by knockout. But it is what it is. But let's say if he does, and obviously he expected to get past Billy Joe Saunders. How does he match up against Gennady Golovkin? It would be a good matchup, unification bout for the middleweight title. Obviously, you would have to give the edge to Golovkin because Golovkin can not only pressure you, but he can also keep you at the out, fight you from the outside with his piston jab. Um, Great tight defense he displayed against David Lemieux. I know some of you guys, most of you guys love to discredit Lemieux. Uh, Kind of funny how that works out when a lot of people were propagating Lemieux to be the guy to knock out Golovkin, but since that didn't turn out that way, everybody's calling him a bum. But it is what it is. um, so with that said, does Billy Jones? I mean, not sorry. Does Andy Lee have a chance against Gennady Golovkin? I would say little to none because Golovkin is way too crafty, and the only way for Andy Lee to win that fight, yeah, you have to pressure him, but at the same time, you got to keep him at bay with keep Golovkin at bay with the jab, fight him in angles, confuse him, so that way he'll have to change. That way you can throw him off his rhythm, and he will have to find another way to fight. So, it should be an interesting matchup. If it comes down to it. So something I will look forward to. So drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Signing off. Share, subscribe. Peace.